At 3 in the morning, I was lying beside the man who had betrayed me, listening to him breathe as though he hadn't quietly destroyed 23 years of marriage. His phone was charging in the kitchen. Inside it were messages from a woman young enough to have gone to school with our children. I stared at the ceiling and wondered which version of my husband was real, the man sleeping beside me, or the one who had typed. I wish I'd met you before I wasted my life. My name is May Luna. I'm 47 years old, and until 3 months ago, I believed I had built a good life with my husband, Adrian. Adrian was 45. We had been together since college, married for more than 20 years, and raised 4 children. Christopher, 22. James, 20. Danielle, 19. And Jackie, 18. I trusted him with everything: my money, my future, my body, and every fear I had never shared with anyone else. He traded all of it for Chloe Bennett, a 26-year-old woman who made him feel young again. But the affair wasn't where our story began. It began in a mansion with marble floors, where Adrian's father pushed a prenuptial agreement across a glass table and looked at me as though I had already stolen something. I grew up in a small house where bills were sometimes paid late, but promises were kept. My father repaired heating systems, and my mother worked double shifts at a nursing home. Adrian came from money. His father owned several businesses. His mother organized charity galas and spoke about family reputation as if it were sacred. From the first time Adrian brought me home, I knew they didn't approve. His mother asked about my ambitions before asking anything about my family. His father wanted to know whether I had student debt and if I expected Adrian to support me. I'm studying finance, I told him. I plan to support myself. He smiled without warmth. Everyone plans that when they're young. When Adrian and I became engaged, his parents requested a private meeting. Their attorney was already waiting. The prenup protected Adrian's inheritance, family money, investments, and future gifts. It also stated that neither spouse would receive alimony if we divorced. Joint property would be divided, but personal earnings and retirement accounts would remain separate. Adrian's father leaned back. This is standard protection. Surely you understand why it's necessary. The implication was obvious. They thought I wanted their money. I understand. Adrian touched my wrist. May, you don't have to sign today. His mother looked at him sharply. I picked up the pen. I'm not marrying you for money. Then I signed. Outside, Adrian kissed me and promised the document would never matter. We're never getting divorced, he whispered. For years, I believed him. After we married, I built my career while Adrian struggled to decide what he wanted. When Christopher was born, Adrian offered to stay home temporarily. I agreed, because I was earning more. He loved caring for the baby, and his parents still sent him a generous allowance. Temporary became permanent. Then James was born, followed by Danielle and Jackie. I worked longer hours. Adrian handled school pickups, appointments, meals, and most of the daily parenting. I never treated his role as less important because he didn't earn a salary. We were supposed to be a team. I paid the mortgage, utilities, groceries, insurance, and household expenses. Adrian's parents covered private schools, vacations, designer clothes, and whatever luxuries he thought the children needed. For years, it worked. Then, about 10 years ago, his family's empire began collapsing. There were lawsuits, failed investments, unpaid taxes, and rumors of misconduct. One business closed, then another. The allowances stopped. The vacations disappeared. Adrian changed. He complained about restaurants we could no longer afford. He compared our house to the one he grew up in. He became angry whenever I suggested budgeting. This isn't how I imagined my life, he said one night. I looked up from my laptop. What does that mean? He stared toward the window. Nothing. Forget it. I should have asked more questions. Instead, I assumed he was grieving the life he had lost. I worked harder, believing stability would make him feel safe again. By the time I realized what Adrian truly missed, he had already found someone willing to make him feel admired and important. The first warning sign was his phone. Adrian had never cared much about technology. He used to leave his phone on counters or hand it to the kids without hesitation. Suddenly, it never left his hand. He carried it into the bathroom. He turned the screen face down when I entered. He smiled at messages, then locked the phone the second he saw me watching. One evening, I came home late and found him laughing at the screen. He quickly put it down. "What was funny?" I asked. "Just something Christopher sent." Christopher later told me he hadn't messaged his father that day. Then came the errands. Adrian started leaving at strange times. He needed groceries from stores across town. He suddenly had gifts to buy, or old friends to meet. But he rarely gave names. The moment everything shifted happened on a Tuesday afternoon. A meeting was canceled, so I left work early. As I drove past a strip mall, I spotted our car parked near the far end of the lot. Adrian was in the driver's seat. A young woman sat beside him. She turned toward him, laughing, and Adrian touched her face. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. I could have confronted them. Instead, I drove home. That night, Adrian kissed my cheek and asked if I wanted to watch a movie. I studied his face, searching for guilt. There was none. 3 days later, he left his phone charging in the kitchen while he showered. The password was still our anniversary. The messages were saved under the name Chloe B. There were hundreds. "I can't wait to see you. She'll be at work until 7. Last night was perfect." Then I found the message that hollowed me out. Chloe had asked, "Do you actually love her?" Adrian replied, "I love the life she provides. I don't know if I love her anymore." I took screenshots and sent them to myself. My hands shook, but my mind became strangely calm. The next morning, I sat in my car outside my office and called a divorce attorney. She listened quietly. When I finished, she said, "Don't confront him yet. People become unpredictable when they realize they're losing security." For the next week, I pretended everything was normal while gathering evidence. I collected bank records, location history, photographs, and messages. Adrian had used our household account to pay for hotels, dinners, and gifts for Chloe. Then my attorney reviewed the prenup. She read several pages twice before looking at me. "His family drafted this to protect him," she said. "But now it protects you." Adrian had no claim to my retirement accounts or future earnings. He had waived alimony. His family fortune was almost gone. Aside from his share of our house, he would leave with very little. The document his parents once used to remind me I was beneath them had become the one thing Adrian couldn't escape. The divorce papers were served the following Tuesday morning. He opened the envelope in the kitchen while I stood near the doorway. His face changed as he read. "May," he whispered. "What is this?" I looked directly at the man who had spent months lying to me. "I know." His mouth opened, but no words came out. Then his eyes dropped back to the paperwork, and I saw the exact moment he remembered the prenup. Fear replaced shock, not because he understood he had lost me, because he understood what losing me would cost. The morning after Adrian was served the divorce papers, he didn't call me. He didn't apologize. He didn't even try to explain. Instead, he went straight to our children. I wasn't there when it happened, but I could picture it perfectly. He gathered them in the living room, sat on the same couch where we'd spent countless Christmas mornings opening presents together, and cried. Real tears. The kind that make people lower their guard. According to Jackie, he kept repeating the same sentence. "Your mother is throwing our family away over one mistake." One mistake. That was how he described months of lies, secret hotel rooms, hidden bank charges, and another woman sleeping in places paid for with my paycheck. By the time I came home from work that evening, the damage had already begun. Jackie knocked on the door of my home office. She had always been the most straightforward of our children. Even as a little girl, she never danced around difficult questions. She closed the door behind her. "Mom!" I looked up from my laptop. "Yeah?" She hesitated for several seconds. "Dad said you're divorcing him." "I am." "Because he cheated?" There wasn't any point lying. "Yes." She stared at the floor. "When?" "For several months." Her jaw tightened. "So, he lied to all of us too." I nodded. Jackie didn't cry. She simply stood up. I'm sorry, Mom. Then she walked out. It was only 4 words, but after weeks of feeling completely alone, hearing one of my children acknowledge my pain nearly broke me. The next message came from Danielle. Unlike Jackie, she hated confrontation. She texted instead of calling. Is it true? I replied. Yes. Several minutes passed before another message appeared. I love you. I love Dad too. I don't know what to do. Neither did I. I typed back anyway. You don't have to choose today. She responded with a single heart emoji. James called 2 days later. He sounded exhausted. I wish there were another way. So do I. Can people ever recover from something like this? I leaned back in my chair. Some couples do. But not you? I closed my eyes. Trust isn't something you glue back together after it's shattered. He didn't argue. I understand. I know this hurts. It does. But I know you wouldn't leave unless it was serious. When the call ended, I sat quietly for a long time. 3 children. 3 completely different reactions. Then came Christopher, my oldest, the child who had made me a mother. He arrived without warning on a Saturday evening. The moment I opened the door, I knew the conversation wasn't going to end well. His face was red. His arms were folded tightly across his chest. Can we talk? Of course. He stepped inside. The silence between us lasted only seconds. Why are you doing this to Dad? There it was. Not, did he really cheat? Not, are you okay? His first concern was Adrian. I stayed calm. Because your father had an affair. Christopher shook his head. He made a mistake. He made hundreds of choices. He said he ended it. Only because he got caught. Christopher paced across the living room. He told me he loves you. I almost laughed. He also told another woman he didn't know if he loved me anymore. His expression changed for just a moment. Confusion. Then determination returned. He regrets it. So? So people deserve forgiveness. I looked directly at him. Forgiveness isn't the same thing as reconciliation. You've been together over 20 years. I know exactly how long. You're giving up. That sentence hurt more than I expected. I didn't give up. He opened his mouth again, but I continued before he could interrupt. I worked 60-hour weeks while your father stayed home. I paid every mortgage payment. I built the retirement accounts. I stayed late at work because someone had to keep this family financially secure. I trusted him completely. And while I was doing all of that, my voice caught. He was in hotel rooms with someone else. Christopher looked away. But he's sorry. I'm sure he is. He cries every day. So do I. That silenced him. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he tried a different approach. What about the family? I took a slow breath. The family was damaged the day your father chose another woman. No. His voice became louder. The divorce is what's destroying us. I felt something inside me harden. Christopher. He stopped speaking. I love you more than you can imagine. I know. But I will not stay married to someone who betrayed me simply to make everyone else comfortable. His eyes filled with tears. Please. I can't. Mom. I can't. He wiped his face. If you loved Dad? I did. No. He shook his head. If you really loved him, you'd fight for him. I stared at my son. I fought for this marriage every single day for 23 years. He had no answer. Eventually he left. Neither of us hugged goodbye. That night I cried harder than I had since discovering the affair. Losing Adrian hurt. Feeling my own son slipping away hurt even more. Over the next several weeks, Christopher became the messenger Adrian never had the courage to be. Every morning there was another text. Dad can't sleep. Dad says he's changed. Dad deserves one more chance. Please stop the divorce. At first I answered politely, then briefly. Finally, not at all. Because after reading enough of those messages, I noticed something strange. They didn't sound like Christopher. The phrases were wrong. The wording felt rehearsed. Everyone deserves grace. Real love forgives. You're punishing him instead of healing. Those weren't my son's words. They were Adrian's. He wasn't trying to save our marriage. He was using our son to do what he couldn't accomplish himself. One afternoon, my attorney called. We've reviewed all the financial documents. And? Your husband has started asking questions about whether the divorce can be delayed. I frowned. Why? He claims he wants more time for counseling. I knew better. The prenup. The same document his parents had insisted I signed 23 years earlier. Back then, they believed it protected Adrian from a poor girl who might someday want his family's wealth. Now his family's wealth barely existed. My career had flourished. My retirement accounts, investments, and business equity belonged solely to me. The prenup barred either spouse from receiving alimony, which meant Adrian couldn't touch a dollar of what I'd built. He would receive his legal share of the house after it sold. Nothing more. For the first time since this nightmare began, everything finally made sense. His tears, his sudden promises, Christopher's relentless messages, the pressure to save the family. This had never been only about love. It was about survival. Adrian wasn't terrified of losing his wife. He was terrified of losing the life my income had provided. That realization hurt less than I expected. Instead, it made me angry. Because if he was willing to manipulate our own son just to avoid facing the consequences of his choices, then I still hadn't seen the worst of what he was capable of. And I was about to find that out at James's 20th birthday dinner. James had never liked being the center of attention. So when he asked if we could celebrate his 20th birthday with nothing more than pizza, cake, and immediate family at my house, I agreed without hesitation. After everything we'd been through, a quiet evening sounded like exactly what we all needed. A week before the dinner, I sent one group message. This night is for James. Please don't bring up the divorce. No arguments, no accusations. Let's give him one peaceful birthday. Jackie replied with a thumbs up. Danielle answered, Of course. Christopher never responded. Neither did Adrian. Looking back, that silence should have warned me. The evening started awkwardly but peacefully. Jackie arrived first carrying 2 pizzas. Danielle came with James, who pretended not to notice how tense everyone looked. Christopher showed up alone. For a moment, I actually believed Adrian had decided to stay away. Then, 20 minutes later, the front door opened. He walked in smiling as though nothing had happened. Sorry I'm late. No apology. No embarrassment. Just confidence. I greeted him politely for James's sake. Come in. Dinner was painfully quiet. James talked about college. Jackie joked about one of her professors. Danielle asked whether anyone wanted more drinks. Christopher barely spoke. Adrian acted as though we were simply an ordinary family sharing another ordinary meal. I kept reminding myself, just get through one evening. For James. When dinner ended, we brought out the birthday cake. James laughed as Jackie purposely sang off-key. For the first time all night, the tension eased. I thought we had made it. Then Adrian stood and lifted his glass. I just want to say something. My stomach tightened. I think tonight proves something important. No one answered. He smiled warmly. No matter what happens, family belongs together. I stared at him. He continued. We all make mistakes. There it was. But real families forgive each other. Jackie slammed her glass onto the table. Seriously? Adrian blinked innocently. What? You couldn't let James have one night? I'm talking about family. No, Jackie shot back. You're talking about yourself. Adrian sighed dramatically. I just don't want this family torn apart. Christopher immediately spoke. Dad's trying. Jackie laughed without humor. Trying? After cheating on Mom? He made one mistake. I felt my head begin to ache. Enough. Both of them looked at me. This conversation ends now. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then Adrian looked directly at me. May. Don't you think 23 years deserves one more chance? Before I could answer, James pushed his chair back. The scraping sound echoed through the room. No. Everyone turned toward him. His face had gone pale. No more lies. Adrian frowned. What are you talking about? James looked across the table. Not at Adrian, at Christopher. You tell them. Christopher froze. I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. Silence. James took one slow breath. You knew Dad was cheating. The room went completely still. Christopher's face drained of color. You knew for months. No one moved. No one even seemed to breathe. I looked at Christopher. Is that true? He stared at the table. James continued. You covered for him. James, you lied whenever Mom asked where Dad was. Stop. You even let him borrow your apartment. Christopher whispered, Please. I felt as though someone had punched me in the chest. I looked back at my oldest son. Christopher. My voice barely came out. Tell me he's wrong. Christopher's eyes filled with tears. But he never denied it. That silence answered everything. Adrian suddenly stood. This isn't the time, Jackie exploded. No! She pointed directly at him. You don't get to decide that anymore. Danielle covered her mouth with both hands. She looked from Christopher to Adrian, unable to believe what she was hearing. James spoke again. I found Dad's messages months ago. I turned toward him. You knew too? He shook his head immediately. I confronted Dad. My heart pounded. He begged me not to tell you. Adrian interrupted. I was trying to fix things. James ignored him. He said if the affair came out, he'd lose everything. Christopher finally spoke. I was trying to protect him. I stared at him. Protect him? He said the divorce would leave him with nothing. My stomach sank. Christopher continued through tears. He said you'd take everything. He said he'd end up alone. So His voice cracked. I covered for him. The room was silent again. I looked at Adrian. So that's what this was. He didn't answer. You weren't asking for forgiveness. Still nothing. You were asking to keep the life I paid for. His shoulders dropped. It wasn't like that. Then explain it. I panicked. You manipulated our son. I was scared. You let him lie to my face. I didn't know what else to do. Jackie stood so quickly her chair fell backward. I can't even look at either of you. She walked out. Danielle quietly followed, crying. James remained standing beside the table. Christopher buried his face in his hands. I never wanted to hurt you. I looked at him for a long time. I believe that. Hope flashed across his face. Then I continued. But you still did. He began sobbing. I thought I was saving our family. No. My voice was calm now. You were saving your father from consequences. Adrian stepped toward me. May. I raised my hand. Don't. For the first time since I had discovered the affair, I wasn't angry. I was simply exhausted. I picked up my keys. I can't do this tonight. I walked out of my own house and sat inside my car. The engine wasn't running. I just sat there in silence. 23 years, 4 children, an entire life, reduced to one dinner table and one devastating truth. The days that followed felt strangely peaceful, not because the pain disappeared, because the uncertainty did. Christopher sent dozens of messages. Some apologized. Some tried to explain. I couldn't answer any of them. Instead, I sent one text. I love you. You'll always be my son. But I need time before I can rebuild what was broken. I hope one day, we both find our way back to each other. He never replied. Maybe he didn't know how. Maybe there was nothing left to say. Jackie stopped speaking to Adrian entirely. Danielle eventually admitted she had suspected something was wrong for months, but never imagined Christopher had been involved. James apologized for exposing everything during his birthday. I hugged him. "You didn't ruin your birthday," I said quietly. "The lies did." As for Adrian, every conversation went through attorneys after that. The house was sold several months later. We each received our legal share. The prenup his parents had proudly placed in front of me more than 2 decades earlier worked exactly as written. No alimony. No claim to my retirement. No access to my investments. No share of the future I had spent 23 years building. Ironically, the document they believed would protect their son became the reason he couldn't rebuild his old life after destroying ours. I later heard through mutual friends that Chloe disappeared only weeks after the divorce was finalized. Without the comfortable lifestyle Adrian had promised her, she simply moved on. I wasn't surprised. People who help destroy marriages rarely stay to rebuild the ruins. Even now, I don't think about revenge. I think about peace. Some nights I still miss the man I believed Adrian was. Other nights I wonder whether he ever truly existed. The hardest loss wasn't my marriage. It was realizing that betrayal doesn't always come from one person. Sometimes it echoes through an entire family. But despite everything, I can finally look in the mirror, knowing one thing with absolute certainty. I didn't destroy my family. I simply refused to sacrifice my self-respect to keep pretending it was still whole.